Hey guys! Tonight, we're going to float through the quieter corners of American history, looking at a man you've probably memorized from your high school textbooks. Yes, that one, Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence, occasional revolutionary philosopher, and, surprisingly, a guy who spent a lot of time inventing things. Not the kind of gadgets that make your life easier today, mind you, but inventions that mostly served his curiosity, his obsessions, or just his desire to tinker. Because, well, why not? Before we start, let's do the usual gentle settling in ritual. Dim your lights, maybe grab a warm drink, sink into whatever chair or bed you're in, and let your shoulders drop. You're about to drift through the sleepy, strangely specific world of a man who spent years designing things that nobody really asked for. And if you start to yawn in the middle, that's fine. It's part of the experience. Now, Jefferson wasn't just your average inventor. He was the kind of guy who saw a mundane problem and immediately wondered if he could build a machine to fix it. Or, sometimes, invent something entirely new just to see if it could exist. He was endlessly curious, deeply methodical, and, as we'll see, a little eccentric. Some of his inventions were practical, some were bizarre, and some were borderline useless, but all of them tell you something about his mind, the way it wandered, the way it constantly plotted and probed, like a quiet little scientist tucked in the corner of early American history. Let's begin with one of his most famous curiosities, the polygraphical machine. No, not the lie detector kind you see in crime shows, though it did measure two things at once. Jefferson's polygraph was a device for writing, or rather for copying what you wrote automatically. Imagine sitting down to draft a letter, and instead of having to painstakingly copy it for your archives, the machine would replicate your handwriting onto a second sheet of paper at the same time. Jefferson, of course, loved to correspond. He wrote hundreds of letters over his lifetime, so naturally, he wanted a device to help him keep track of all of them without actually doing extra work. The machine itself was a wooden frame with a pair of pens connected by a system of levers and strings. When one pen moved, the other mirrored it. Jefferson first saw a version of this in France while he was serving as ambassador, and he was immediately intrigued. Then, naturally, he improved it, or at least tried to. There are surviving letters where he describes adjusting the tension on the springs and the angle of the levers as if he were trying to coax the machine into being almost human in its accuracy. Of course, it never became widely used. Copiers, typewriters, and eventually computers did the job better. But for Jefferson, it wasn't about efficiency. It was about curiosity, about creating a little mechanical echo of his own hand. And let's be honest, it's kind of a charmingly obsessive problem to have. How to make a machine mimic your handwriting exactly. Floating over to another peculiar invention, we find Jefferson's polygraphical plow. Yes, he actually applied his tinkering mind to agriculture. Monticello, his estate in Virginia, wasn't just a home, it was his ongoing laboratory for plants, farming techniques, and tools. Jefferson loved experimenting with soil and crops, and he hated inefficiency. The polygraphical plow wasn't actually copying anything, despite the name. It was more about improving the plow itself, making it lighter and easier to use. He fiddled with the angle of the blade, the depth of the cut, and even the handles, writing notes in meticulous detail about which changes made the plowing smoother. The average farmer probably never needed Jefferson's modifications, but he took joy in optimizing things. It's worth pausing here to note a pattern. Jefferson wasn't inventing for fame, wealth, or military glory. He was inventing because it amused him, because he could, because he liked solving puzzles, sometimes minor, sometimes absurdly minor. And in this, He resembled a lot of other historical inventors who were quietly eccentric. Think of the 18th century equivalent of someone spending hours trying to make the perfect toast or align the cutlery just right. Now, if we drift gently to Monticello itself, Jefferson had another curiosity that combined practicality with aesthetic obsession: the dumbwaiter. Not just any dumbwaiter, but a clever system that allowed servants to move wine, food, or letters between floors without disrupting the genteel, quiet household life. At first glance, this seems perfectly reasonable. At second glance, it's Jefferson. So he designed it to be not just functional, but elegant, with pulleys and counterweights that moved silently. Monticello was full of inventions like this: book-holding devices, adjustable chairs, and even a revolving bookstand for letters. Jefferson was fascinated by movement, balance, and the small efficiencies that made life slightly more refined, or at least slightly more under his control. One of the slightly stranger inventions, though, was Jefferson's great clock. It wasn't great because it was huge or fancy, though it was both. It was great because it tried to show not just the hours and minutes, but the date, the phases of the moon, and even the day of the week in a single mechanism. Jefferson was obsessed with the passage of time, probably because he always had multiple projects going at once and wanted to track them meticulously. Imagine, if you will, a room with a clock so complicated it could silently mock you with its precision while you were failing to finish your other inventions. That's Jefferson for you: relentless, curious, and quietly critical of human inefficiency. Another invention worth floating over to is the wheel-based copy machine. Jefferson, like many of his contemporaries, was fascinated with secure communication. Letters were vulnerable to interception, and Jefferson, ever the letter writer, had a desire for secrecy. The wheel cipher consisted of rotating discs with letters inscribed around the edges. By arranging the discs in a certain way, you could encode a message that only someone with the same disc arrangement could decode. It was incredibly clever and technically secure for the time, though a bit fiddly. In a way, it's a perfect Jefferson invention: elegant, quietly protective, and designed for a mind that worried about correspondence on multiple levels. We could also drift gently into Jefferson's experiments with furniture design. He created chairs and desks with secret compartments and unusual mechanisms, drawers that slid in hidden directions, chairs that adjusted in ways most people didn't need. He particularly liked the type of swivel chair that allowed him to write and reach multiple work surfaces without standing up. Imagine him slowly rotating from desk to writing table, adjusting ink pots, and making meticulous notes, all while the room remained calm, quiet, and orderly. It's oddly soothing to picture, really. There's also Jefferson's work with plumbing and water systems. He designed a system at Monticello that included a type of indoor water feature, almost like a primitive fountain, that could be used for drinking water, bathing, or even cooling the air slightly. He was interested in how water moved, how pressure worked, and how to combine utility with elegance. Again, this is a man who looked at a simple stream of water and thought, how can I make this a little more interesting? And then there's Jefferson's fruit sorting machine. This one is delightfully minor and wonderfully specific. He had thousands of fruit trees at Monticello and a keen interest in agriculture, so he devised a contraption that could sort fruit by size. It was basically a wooden ramp with holes of different diameters, letting smaller fruit drop through while larger fruit rolled on. It didn't revolutionize agriculture, but it told you everything you needed to know about Jefferson: patient, curious, endlessly tinkering, and a little obsessed with order. Before we start drifting toward another invention, let's pause for a moment to consider Jefferson's mindset. He lived in a time when being learned meant more than just reading books. It meant understanding the natural world, machines, letters, agriculture, and human behavior all at once. So his inventions, strange or mundane, were expressions of that wide-ranging curiosity. Each device, each tweak, was an attempt to make the world slightly more orderly or slightly more amusing, depending on how you look at it. And because he was always tinkering, he never really stopped inventing. Even in his later years, long after his presidency, he continued to sketch designs, adjust mechanisms, and correspond with people about technical ideas. Next, we drift toward Jefferson's violin improvements. Yes, musical instruments. Jefferson loved music and played the violin
Throughout his life, he experimented with the shape and tension of strings, trying to produce a clearer, more resonant tone. Some of his modifications were not exactly necessary, but again, they speak to his compulsive curiosity. Every problem, no matter how small, became a potential project. And finally, we can barely glide past Jefferson's wheel-based copy machine for surveying. Jefferson was deeply involved in mapping and surveying land, both for personal estates and national projects. He devised devices that helped record measurements more accurately, using wheel mechanisms to track distance and angles. It's technical, slow, precise, and of course, quietly obsessive. Just the kind of thing that makes you yawn gently while imagining a man hunched over wooden gears, sketching lines in the fading afternoon light. So, as we float gently toward the end of this first part, let's summarize the picture we've built. Thomas Jefferson was a man of letters, philosophy, and invention. But his inventions weren't about making headlines or selling products. They were about curiosity, about solving small problems in ways that no one had quite thought of, and about keeping his mind endlessly engaged. Whether it was copying letters with a polygraph, moving food silently with a dumbwaiter, or sorting fruit with a tiny wooden ramp, Jefferson's inventions reveal a man quietly obsessed with the details of his own world. And with that image in your mind, we can begin to relax further. Imagine Monticello in the soft afternoon light, a slow breeze ruffling papers, the quiet tick of a great clock, and Jefferson gently turning the wheel of some small, intricate device just to see if it will work. It's calm. It's methodical. It's strangely comforting to picture. Let's drift a little further next time, exploring even more of Jefferson's private curiosities, the inventions that never left his notebooks, and the ways he shaped a personal world that was entirely, quietly, his own.
Now that we've wandered through some of Jefferson's more public inventions, the polygraph, plow modifications, dumbwaiters, and a clock that could probably guilt you for wasting time, let's drift quietly into some of the more private corners of his inventive life. These are the things he scribbled in notebooks, tinkered with late at night, or experimented with in ways that few, if any, people ever saw. They're subtle, sometimes baffling, and very, very Jefferson. One of the first things to note is that Jefferson had a lifelong fascination with rotating mechanisms. He seemed to look at ordinary objects, chairs, desks, tables, bookshelves, and think, how could this move differently, better, or at least more quietly? Some of these designs were practical. Some were purely aesthetic. Some were, honestly, probably just for fun. Imagine him, late at Monticello, sketching yet another wheel or lever in his notebook, musing over angles and tension like a child with a new puzzle. It's a comforting, gentle image. Take his revolving bookstand, for example. Jefferson wrote hundreds of letters, often dictated to secretaries or carefully copied by hand. So he invented a stand where multiple letters or documents could rotate on a single spindle. This way, he could scan one sheet, then gently spin it to the next without having to lift a single paper. In a way, it was like a precursor to modern Lazy Susans, but for correspondence. It wasn't life-changing, nobody needed it, but Jefferson, obsessed with efficiency and order, found the small joy in it. Speaking of efficiency, Jefferson also experimented with innovative desk arrangements. Not just ordinary desks, mind you, but desks that could be adjusted to multiple angles, with compartments and sliding surfaces designed to hold maps, letters, writing instruments, and even small scientific instruments. Monticello was full of such creations. It's easy to imagine him rotating slightly in his chair, pulling out a hidden drawer, scribbling notes, and rotating back. His life a gentle choreography of invention and observation. Next, let's drift over to Jefferson's fascination with agricultural mechanisms, which he never really left behind. He designed and tested various plows, seed drills, and irrigation techniques. One of his inventions, sometimes called the planting machine, allowed seeds to be dropped at regular intervals, reducing the need to bend and stoop for hours. It was functional, but also, as Jefferson wrote in his notes, curiously satisfying to see the seeds fall in a quiet, orderly procession. There's something strangely meditative about that sentence, isn't it? It's the slow, methodical mind of a man who found peace in control over small mechanical systems. And then there's Jefferson's grape press, which he designed for Monticello's vineyards. Unlike a standard press, his design included adjustable plates and levers to carefully control pressure. He was very precise, obsessing over how to extract juice without crushing seeds and producing bitter flavors. Again, this is not an invention that changed the world, but it's deeply Jeffersonian, elegant, careful, quietly perfectionistic. Drifting now to another corner of Monticello, we find Jefferson's wine casks and water systems. Jefferson was deeply interested in hydraulics, and he designed ways to move liquids smoothly, whether for irrigation, drinking water, or, of course, wine. Pipes, reservoirs, and rudimentary valves crisscrossed the estate in a careful, almost artistic way. It's the sort of detail that might escape a casual visitor, but to Jefferson, it was essential. Water, after all, could be as much a design challenge as a philosophical one. And while we're on the topic of liquids, let's briefly talk about Jefferson's ice house experiments. Jefferson was fascinated with preserving food and cooling drinks, and he designed insulated storage to keep ice longer through the summer months. He wrote notes on different packing techniques, the use of straw and sawdust, and how the placement of blocks affected melting. There's a slow, meditative quality here. A man quietly studying ice, thinking about time, temperature, and entropy, all while the summer sun crept across the Virginia hills. We can't forget Jefferson's wheel-based surveying devices. Jefferson was involved in land surveys for decades, mapping the Western territories and improving methods for precise measurement. He experimented with wheels, levers, and basic gears to track distance and elevation more accurately. It's a subtle, quiet genius kind of tinkering. Imagine him, notebook in hand, sketching angles, adjusting the wheels, marking distances. Slow, deliberate, patient. This is not the dramatic kind of history that fills textbooks, but it's rich in the kind of human curiosity that soothes when narrated gently. Now, if we float a little further, we come to Jefferson's musical curiosities. Jefferson loved the violin and played throughout his life.
But he wasn't satisfied with ordinary instruments. He experimented with string tension, bridge shapes, and even the curvature of the violin's body, trying to coax richer tones and better resonance. Imagine him quietly bowing across strings in the evening, listening carefully to the subtle vibrations, tweaking angles and tensions like a calm, methodical scientist of sound. There's something almost hypnotic about picturing that scene. A man and his violin, slowly refining, endlessly curious. Let's drift next to Jefferson's invisible ink experiments. Not the kind of spy stuff you see in movies, well, maybe a little, but Jefferson was fascinated with secrecy and privacy. He tested various formulas for invisible ink, some of which made from common household items like milk or lemon juice, and others slightly more exotic. He wanted correspondence that could remain private without risk of damage to the paper. The experiments were meticulous, quiet, almost ritualistic. There's a certain gentle intrigue in imagining Jefferson carefully writing a letter, then testing an ink formula in the soft afternoon light. And then, of course, we must mention his clock improvements beyond the great Monticello clock. Jefferson was obsessed with timekeeping and often experimented with pendulums, escapements, and dials. One of his minor projects included a small pocket clock with multiple indicators: hours, minutes, seconds, and lunar phases. He was fascinated by how time could be visualized mechanically, and how a small system of gears and weights could quietly measure the universe's steady march. It's oddly comforting to picture Jefferson tuning tiny gears late into the night, his hands steady, his mind wandering through abstract possibilities. Drifting more abstractly, Jefferson also designed mechanical doors and windows. Not just ordinary doors, mind you, but adjustable, counterweighted, or spring-loaded mechanisms to improve ventilation, light, or convenience. He tinkered constantly, taking notes, building prototypes, testing small improvements, and always refining. It's a subtle obsession with control over the environment, but in a gentle, calm, non-anxious way. His Monticello was a sanctuary for experimentation, an ongoing meditation in wood, metal, and water. Jefferson's agricultural experiments with plants were just as meticulous. He hybridized vegetables, experimented with soil types, and tested crop rotations. He kept detailed notes, sketching diagrams of fields, rows, and planting spacing. He even designed small hand tools specifically for testing soil or planting seeds in particular arrangements. Each note, each sketch, is an echo of the slow, deliberate mind at work, content to explore details that most people never notice. And then we drift into Jefferson's architectural curiosities. He wasn't just a tinkerer, he was also a designer. Monticello itself is full of inventions disguised as design choices: hidden staircases, cleverly aligned windows, and thoughtful airflow channels. He experimented with skylights, roof angles, and even the curvature of the door frames, all subtle adjustments meant to improve comfort, light, and aesthetic harmony. Walking through Monticello, you can feel the gentle hand of a man who designed not just a house, but a living laboratory for quiet contemplation. And finally, before we gently close this section, there's Jefferson's fruit sorting and measuring tools. We touched on this before, but he took it even further, devising devices to gauge fruit size, weight, and ripeness.
It's minor work, almost trivial, yet strangely meditative. There's something comforting about imagining Jefferson slowly dropping apples through wooden ramps, measuring peaches, and recording results meticulously. It's an intimate portrait of a man quietly obsessed with detail, order, and gentle experimentation.
So, as we drift toward the end of this part, let's pause and reflect. Jefferson's inventions were rarely revolutionary. They didn't change the world overnight. They weren't flashy. They didn't make him rich or famous in the way other inventors or industrialists might have hoped. But they reveal something quieter, a mind that never stopped exploring, that found fascination in small details, and that could transform the mundane into an endless field of curiosity. Imagine him now in the soft twilight of Monticello, the wind rustling papers and leaves, Jefferson tinkering quietly with a small lever or wheel, sipping water from a hand-pumped system, listening to the faint hum of gears and the distant sound of birds. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, just quiet invention, slow observation, and gentle satisfaction. And with that image in your mind, let's slowly let our thoughts drift along with Jefferson's calm, methodical curiosity. We'll continue in the next part, exploring even deeper quirks, eccentricities, and tiny obsessions that made Thomas Jefferson not just a founding father, but a quietly inventive mind whose private experiments reveal a life of endless, gentle curiosity.
Now that we've floated through Jefferson's more well-known inventions, the polygraph, his plow modifications, clever Monticello contraptions, and musical experiments, it's time to drift even deeper into the quieter, less obvious corners of his inventive life. These are the kinds of things that rarely make it into textbooks, yet reveal a man whose curiosity never stopped, whose mind was always spinning even when the world around him was calm and ordinary. Let's start with Jefferson's hidden book compartments. Monticello, after all, was a library as much as it was a home. Jefferson collected thousands of books, many rare and valuable, and he had a tendency to create hidden compartments, secret drawers, and rotating shelves. Not for espionage, mostly, but to organize and protect his collection. He loved order, but he also loved little surprises in design. Imagine gently sliding a panel, and there it is, a hidden shelf with letters or rare books quietly waiting. To Jefferson, this was both practical and satisfying, an elegant solution to a librarian's eternal problem: too many books, not enough space. Now, floating softly over to heating and ventilation experiments, Jefferson had a curious obsession with comfort. He designed fireplace systems and vents to circulate warm air more efficiently, and he experimented with airflow in rooms to keep them cool in the summer and cozy in the winter. He scribbled diagrams showing how different chimney angles affected smoke movement, or how vents could create a subtle draft. It's the sort of slow, careful, obsessive thinking that's almost hypnotic to imagine. A man lying awake at night, thinking about how air flows and sketching tiny adjustments until he's satisfied. Drifting gently, we find Jefferson's garden inventions. Monticello, after all, was a library as much as it was a home. Jefferson collected thousands of books, many rare and valuable, and he had a tendency to create hidden compartments, secret drawers, and rotating shelves. Not for espionage, mostly, but to organize and protect his collection. He loved order, but he also loved little surprises in design. Imagine gently sliding a panel, and there it is, a hidden shelf with letters or rare books quietly waiting. To Jefferson, this was both practical and satisfying, an elegant solution to a librarian's eternal problem: too many books, not enough space. Now, floating softly over to wine innovations, Jefferson didn't just care about pressing grapes. He studied fermentation, storage, and even cooling methods. He experimented with barrels, wooden valves, and temperature control, making small adjustments to prevent spoilage. Jefferson was methodical and curious, taking pleasure in observing chemical processes and imagining improvements. It's almost like a quiet laboratory of daily life, wine, food, water, and air, all under careful observation. Let's drift now to Jefferson's letter copying techniques beyond the polygraph. Jefferson loved letters, and he loved the idea of preserving every thought he wrote. He experimented with special presses, sheets, and inks to make subtle copies, sometimes layering letters with translucent sheets. The goal was simple: never lose an idea. But the process became a slow, delicate ritual: writing, copying, rotating sheets, adjusting angles, observing the ink flow. It's almost hypnotic to picture, isn't it? A man quietly devoted to capturing every word he could produce. Next, let's float to Jefferson's modifications of everyday furniture. Beyond the clever desks and revolving bookstands, he designed tables with sliding tops, chairs with adjustable backs, and cabinets with hidden drawers. Every piece had multiple functions, often subtle, almost imperceptible. He took ordinary items and made them gently more complicated, more precise, more Jefferson. And while some of these innovations never left Monticello, they reveal a steady mind attuned to detail, always experimenting with small ways to improve daily life. One of his quieter inventions involved mechanical doors for storage spaces. Jefferson created cabinets and closets with sliding, hinged, or counterweighted doors. Some opened in unconventional ways, while others used clever levers to allow a single person to move heavy doors easily. To him, this was just part of making life more elegant and efficient. The rest of the world may never have noticed, but Monticello was quietly alive with his ingenuity, a house that moved with thought and care rather than force. And then there's Jefferson's experiments with natural light. He studied the position of windows, the angles of skylights, and even the curvature of door frames to optimize daylight in his rooms. He kept sketches of shadows at different times of day and noted which angles created the most comfortable lighting. Imagine him, late afternoon, tracing sunlight with a pencil, calculating subtle variations. It's not flashy, not dramatic, but deeply meditative, a slow rhythm of observation and adjustment. Floating even further, we find Jefferson's fascination with automated or semi-automated tools for writing and surveying. He created simple devices to measure angles, distances, or rotations more accurately. Some of these were tiny mechanical inventions that used wheels, levers, and small counters. Jefferson's goal wasn't fame, it was precision. He liked tools that quietly extended his senses and let him explore the world in methodical detail. Imagine a calm day, a gentle breeze, and Jefferson sitting in a field, slowly rotating wheels to map land, recording every detail carefully. It's a scene that invites relaxation more than excitement. And we can't forget Jefferson's curiosity about motion and hydraulics. He experimented with fountains, water wheels, and small pumps, studying pressure, flow, and sound. Sometimes he integrated these ideas into his gardens or homes. Other times, they were just experiments in observation. He was patient, meticulous, quietly obsessed with understanding natural forces. The faint gurgle of water from a Monticello fountain was probably accompanied by Jefferson's gentle notations in the margin of a notebook. Adjust slope by half an inch. Small details, slow work, infinite curiosity. Next, we drift to Jefferson's domestic timekeeping curiosities. Beyond his great clock, he was fascinated with the measurement of time for daily routines. He experimented with multiple dials, pendulums, and weight-driven mechanisms to track not just hours and minutes, but the subtle ebb of the day. He wanted to know at a slow, deliberate level how time could be represented mechanically, and how small inventions could help structure life in quiet ways. And then there's the gentle oddity of Jefferson's door locks and key experiments. He tinkered with mechanisms for privacy, security, and even mild intrigue. Some were practical, some were entirely whimsical. He designed small innovations that allowed doors to lock in subtle ways or to open only through careful manipulation. It wasn't about secrecy in a dramatic sense, it was about mastery, subtle control, and satisfaction in clever engineering. Drifting now to Jefferson's fruit presses and measuring devices, we find the same quiet obsession repeated in smaller ways. He wanted to control quality, consistency, and growth in all things edible. He designed wooden ramps, measuring boards, and presses that allowed him to sort fruit by size, monitor ripeness, and observe subtle variations. It's the kind of detail that would seem absurd to most people, but to Jefferson, it was part of a daily meditation on life, order, and natural beauty. And of course, we must gently linger on Jefferson's personal curiosity experiments. His notes on sleep patterns, food storage, and personal comfort. He kept journals, sketched routines, and adjusted environmental factors in Monticello with calm, methodical precision. He measured temperatures, noted light angles, and tested small devices to improve convenience or comfort. He was quietly self-obsessed, in the best sense of the word, focused on understanding life as fully as possible, in all its small details, and refining his environment for slow, deliberate living. So, as we gently close this section, imagine Monticello once more. The soft rustle of papers, the faint hum of a carefully adjusted water pump, and the angled sunlight spilling across a quietly rotating bookstand. Jefferson, bent over a notebook or tinkering with a small lever, is entirely absorbed, calm, and perfectly content. No urgency, no spectacle, just quiet curiosity and gentle invention. And with that image, we can let ourselves drift a little further, imagining a world where invention is slow, observation is calm, and curiosity is gentle. Next time,
We'll explore even more of Jefferson's hidden experiments, his private eccentricities, and the way a single mind could quietly fill a home with invention, observation, and endless subtle fascination.
As we continue our gentle journey through Jefferson's life, it's time to drift into the truly whimsical corners of his mind. Those private experiments and curious contraptions that never made it to textbooks or patent offices. These are the inventions that show us Jefferson not as a statesman, not as a founding father, but as a quietly obsessive tinkerer, endlessly curious and strangely playful. Let's begin with Jefferson's fascination with mechanical chairs. Now, we've mentioned his practical swivel chairs and adjustable desks, but some of his designs were more unusual. He experimented with chairs that could rock, tilt, or even lift slightly with a system of levers and springs. Imagine him late at night, quietly testing angles, adjusting tension, noting how the chair reacted to weight. Some were comfortable, some were less so. But all of them were small explorations in mechanics and human ergonomics. Jefferson liked understanding how people moved and how objects could move with them, even in ways that seemed unnecessary to anyone else. Floating gently to the gardens, we encounter Jefferson's rotating plant stands. Monticello had thousands of plants, and Jefferson was obsessed with sunlight, air circulation, and observation. Some of his stands could be turned slowly, allowing him to monitor growth or adjust light exposure. It's almost hypnotic to picture him turning a stand, inspecting leaves, and quietly scribbling in his notebook. To Jefferson, these were not mere tools, they were instruments of careful observation, slow and methodical, part of a life spent attuned to detail. Next, we drift to one of Jefferson's more playful inventions, the small birdhouse with a mechanical feeding system. He loved observing wildlife, and he designed devices that would allow birds to feed in controlled ways, while he quietly took notes on behavior, diet, and habits. It's minor, almost trivial, but charming. Jefferson's fascination with natural life extended beyond agriculture to the smallest details of his environment, birds, insects, and plants alike. Each little contraption was part of a personal laboratory tucked into the Monticello landscape. And speaking of Monticello, Jefferson had a series of hidden staircases and sliding doors throughout the house. Not secret passages for drama, but subtle mechanisms designed to improve flow, save space, or simply delight in clever engineering. He experimented with weight distribution, friction, and angles, sometimes sketching modifications in his notebooks late at night. Walking through Monticello, you can almost imagine doors sliding quietly at his touch, shelves rotating gently, and hidden compartments awaiting discovery. It's all very serene and precise, a man shaping his world in subtle, elegant ways. Drifting over to kitchen experiments, Jefferson had a curious fascination with efficiency and precision. He designed devices to help grind spices, measure flour, and press grapes or other fruits. Some of these machines were miniature marvels of careful gears and levers designed to reduce effort while quietly satisfying his need for order. Imagine Jefferson slowly turning a crank, noting the smooth rotation, watching the final product, and quietly adjusting the mechanism until it worked just so. There's almost a meditative quality to it. Now let's float gently into Jefferson's mechanical writing aids beyond the polygraph. He experimented with pens, ink reservoirs, and small guiding devices to help with neatness and precision. Some were designed to allow consistent handwriting over long letters. Others were simply small experiments in improving control over a common task. It's almost hypnotic. Vision Jefferson hunched over paper, a small device guiding his hand, the world outside Monticello fading as he focused on perfect lines of ink. We can also drift into his curiosity about animal behavior. Jefferson kept detailed notes on livestock, observing habits, diet, and productivity. He experimented with feeding systems, pens, and enclosures, sometimes designing mechanisms that allowed animals to move or feed more efficiently. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, just slow observation, careful measurement, and gentle tinkering. It's almost a calming image, a man quietly attending to chickens, cows, and sheep, gently adjusting their world in subtle ways. Next, we float to Jefferson's musical eccentricities. He experimented with violin adjustments beyond strings and tension. He tested small modifications in bridges, sound holes, and angles, quietly refining the instrument to his liking. There's no audience, no applause, just him, bow in hand, listening intently, adjusting minutely, and noting every subtle change in tone. The rhythm is slow, deliberate, soothing, almost meditative. Then we have Jefferson's water glass experiments, not the kind you see in parties, but the precise study of shape, thickness, and balance to improve drinking experience. He tested glasses of different angles and curves, noting how aroma, taste, and balance shifted. It sounds trivial, but to Jefferson, it was part of a larger philosophy, understanding and refining the small details of daily life. Every sip, every observation became part of a slow, meticulous rhythm of living. And let us gently float toward Jefferson's mechanical water clocks and small hydraulic devices. Beyond the fountains and plumbing we've discussed, he experimented with small flow meters, valves, and pumps to measure water, observe pressure, and adjust systems in subtle ways. Imagine him late afternoon, leaning over a small tank, watching water drip and noting rates, making minute adjustments. It's not urgent or dramatic. It's slow, precise, and soothing. Drifting now to Jefferson's hidden writing drawers and correspondence organizers, we see the same obsessive care. He designed compartments that were subtle, clever, and entirely for personal satisfaction. Some drawers had spring-loaded mechanisms or rotating panels. Some were simply puzzles for him to enjoy. It's a quiet, gentle curiosity, organizing, securing, and observing. Every little adjustment was part of a lifetime of careful, thoughtful invention. Next, we float to Jefferson's fruit press refinements, extending earlier experiments. He designed small levers, ramps, and measurements to control pressure and sort produce. It's almost hypnotic, fruit rolling down a ramp, falling gently into measured spaces, carefully weighed and recorded. The rhythm is slow, deliberate, satisfying, and most importantly, quietly meditative. And then there's Jefferson's experimental lighting systems. Beyond arranging windows, he tinkered with reflectors, shades, and lamp placements to improve light distribution in rooms. Some experiments were subtle, some were more elaborate. Imagine him late evening, tracing shadows with a pencil, adjusting angles, noting how light moved across walls. The result was a calm, harmonious environment designed for reading, thinking, and gentle invention. And floating even further, Jefferson had a small collection of mechanical puzzles and toys, not for amusement of children, though they might have enjoyed them, but as exercises in mechanics, patience, and observation. Levers, pulleys, rotating discs, and hidden compartments allowed him to explore movement, balance, and cause and effect in miniature. It's a small, quietly satisfying pleasure, understanding, testing, and observing. No urgency, no applause, just gentle curiosity. And then there's Jefferson's study of airflow through doors and windows, subtle but persistent. He sketched, measured, and adjusted for cross-ventilation, air circulation, and comfort. Each adjustment was careful, deliberate, thoughtful. He was never in a hurry. He simply wanted to understand, to experiment, and to refine. And as we picture him in Monticello, quietly moving panels and vents, we begin to understand how deeply immersive his inventions were in daily life. And finally, before we drift toward rest, Jefferson's miscellaneous small mechanical aids, simple levers, counterweights, rotating tables, and measuring devices. Each tiny contraption reveals the same gentle pattern: careful observation, patient tinkering,
Quiet satisfaction. They may not have changed the world, but they reveal a man endlessly curious, quietly obsessive, and subtly playful. So, as we let our minds drift alongside Jefferson in Monticello, picture him gently rotating a plant stand, adjusting a lever, tuning a violin, or observing water flow. Everything is calm, deliberate, and soothing. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. Just a man quietly inventing, refining, and observing the small rhythms of life. And with that image, let yourself relax a little further. Imagine the gentle sounds of Monticello, the soft click of levers, the quiet rotation of wooden mechanisms, the faint rustle of leaves in the wind, and drift into the slow, meticulous, and oddly comforting world of Thomas Jefferson, the inventor, observer, and quietly obsessive thinker.
As we drift deeper into Jefferson's world, it's time to explore the final corners of his inventive life, the small, peculiar, and quietly obsessive projects that never left Monticello but revealed the full rhythm of his mind. These are the inventions and experiments that weren't about fame, profit, or recognition. They were about curiosity, observation, and the gentle satisfaction of figuring out how the world worked, or could work, if only he adjusted a lever, a wheel, or a blade just so. Let's begin with Jefferson's hydraulic experiments in miniature. Beyond the fountains and water systems we've mentioned, he experimented with small water wheels, pumps, and valves, just for observation. Some were designed to irrigate gardens, others were simply demonstrations of how pressure and flow interacted. Imagine him leaning over a tiny wooden tank, adjusting a valve by millimeters, noting the speed of water, and quietly smiling at the subtle effects. There's a calm, almost meditative rhythm here. Water moves, Jefferson observes, adjustments are made, and life continues in a slow, deliberate pace. Floating gently to his hidden compartments for correspondence and documents, Jefferson had a subtle obsession with organization and security. These weren't dramatic secret passages, they were clever drawers, rotating panels, and sliding shelves, often integrated into desks or cabinets. Letters could be stored, retrieved, and protected with a quiet satisfaction that only someone obsessed with order could appreciate. It's easy to imagine him turning a small lever, opening a panel, and slipping letters into a hidden nook, feeling a small, private sense of achievement. And then there's Jefferson's fascination with rotating mechanisms for food preparation. We've touched on grate presses and fruit sorters, but he extended this curiosity to small kitchen implements, including mills for grinding grains, rotating cutting boards, and adjustable racks for drying herbs. Some of these devices were purely functional, others were simply experiments in mechanical balance and efficiency. Jefferson loved observing motion and the quiet satisfaction of systems that worked smoothly. Drifting next into Jefferson's musical refinements, beyond violin experiments, he also tinkered with the acoustics of rooms. He observed how sound traveled through hallways, across floors, and against walls. Some of his sketches show subtle modifications to ceilings, panels, and doorways to enhance tonal quality. It's not concert hall dramatic, just gentle, thoughtful, and precise. Imagine him softly bowing, listening intently, adjusting panels and scribbling notes in a calm, almost hypnotic rhythm. And let's float over to Jefferson's small mechanical teaching aids. He had an interest in explaining processes visually, whether for family, guests, or himself. He designed rotating globes, simple pulley systems, and tiny models to illustrate mechanical principles or natural phenomena. Each was a slow, quiet invention, a tool for observation and understanding rather than spectacle. The rhythm is gentle: rotate, observe, adjust, record, repeat. Now, drifting into airflow and ventilation refinements, Jefferson experimented with chimneys, vents, and panels. He noted subtle drafts, the movement of smoke, and the circulation of warm and cool air. Some systems were permanent, others were small, adjustable contraptions that allowed him to test different configurations. Imagine him tracing a stream of smoke with a pencil, adjusting a panel, and noting results. The process is soothing in its deliberate repetition, a slow dance between observation and adjustment. Floating gently to Jefferson's small clock experiments, beyond the great Monticello clock, he designed devices that measured time in unique ways: lunar phases, day length, and subtle mechanical counters. Some were pocket-sized, some were integrated into cabinets or furniture. He loved tracking subtle variations in time, almost as if he were measuring the rhythm of life itself. It's quiet work, done in a calm, reflective space, where ticking gears become a companion rather than a distraction. Then there are Jefferson's hidden observation devices for plants and animals.
He designed small platforms, ramps, and stands to monitor growth, feeding, or movement. Some devices allowed him to track angles of sunlight, water absorption, or animal habits. Imagine a gentle afternoon at Monticello. A bird hops onto a small perch, a plant slowly tilts towards sunlight, and Jefferson quietly scribbles notes, recording every subtle detail in calm observation. There's a rhythm to it, slow and deliberate, almost hypnotic. And then there's Jefferson's small puzzle mechanisms, created purely for the joy of experimentation. These included miniature levers, rotating discs, and hidden drawers. They were not for others to solve, but for him to enjoy the quiet mental exercise of cause and effect. It's the same obsessive curiosity we've seen throughout his life. Tiny experiments, gently tested, quietly recorded, never urgent, always satisfying in their precision. Drifting to Jefferson's experimentations with light and reflection, he studied how sunlight traveled through windows, across mirrors, and along polished surfaces. Some sketches show subtle adjustments to mirrors, small reflectors, or window angles to enhance illumination without disturbing the calm of the rooms. Imagine him observing morning light slowly spreading across the floor, making notes about angles and brightness, slowly perfecting the serene atmosphere of Monticello. Next, we can float to Jefferson's small surveying inventions, extensions of the wheel-based devices mentioned earlier. He experimented with miniaturized tools, gears, and measuring devices to map land with quiet precision. These tools were delicate, methodical, and utterly personal, used not for fame, but for understanding, recording, and observation. The rhythm is slow. Measure, rotate a wheel, jot a note, adjust a lever. A gentle, meditative process repeated day after day. And then there's Jefferson's domestic tool experiments. Small levers, crank mechanisms, and rotating platforms designed to simplify everyday life. Some helped move objects, some were designed to measure or sort. All reflected the same quiet, obsessive pattern of observation, adjustment, improvement, satisfaction. Jefferson was endlessly attentive to detail, taking pleasure in small efficiencies and mechanical harmony. Finally, let's drift into Jefferson's late-life inventions, which were increasingly whimsical. He designed miniature models, experimental chairs, and simple machines for observation, reflection, and personal amusement. Some were practical, some were absurd, and some were purely meditative exercises in cause and effect. There's a gentle joy in imagining an older Jefferson quietly tinkering, scribbling, and adjusting, entirely absorbed in a slow, meticulous rhythm of invention. So, as we begin to close this final part of our exploration, let's picture Monticello once more. The wind rustles leaves outside. A faint hum comes from a carefully balanced wheel or rotating stand. Jefferson leans over a small device, adjusting levers, scribbling notes, and observing movement. Perhaps a bird lands nearby. Perhaps the afternoon sun tilts across the floor, casting long shadows. Everything is calm, precise, and deliberate. No rush, no spectacle, just quiet invention and patient observation. And with that gentle image, we can slowly let ourselves drift alongside Jefferson, letting his meticulous, curious, and slightly eccentric world lull us into calm reflection. The polygraphs, water wheels, rotating plant stands, hidden drawers, and tiny mechanical puzzles, all of it becomes a rhythm of quiet curiosity, the slow pulse of a mind endlessly exploring the small wonders of life. Imagine yourself sitting somewhere in Monticello, a warm drink at hand, soft sunlight falling across papers and plants, the faint tick of clocks, the gentle rotation of devices, the calm movements of a man devoted to observation. All of it combines into a slow, meditative harmony. Thomas Jefferson, inventor and observer, quietly shaping his environment one gentle experiment at a time. And as we let that world fade softly into memory, it's comforting to remember that not all invention is loud, revolutionary, or urgent.
Some of it is quiet. Some of it is patient. Some of it, like Jefferson's, is a gentle meditation on life itself. Slowly, softly, we drift along with him, carrying the calm rhythm of curiosity into the evening, the night, and beyond.
As we drift toward the gentle close of our exploration, it's worth pausing to reflect on the quiet, patient, and sometimes whimsical genius of Thomas Jefferson. We've wandered through his famous inventions, the polygraph, the wheel-based surveying tools, clever desks, and agricultural innovations. We've lingered in the private corners of Monticello, where hidden drawers, rotating bookstands, and mechanical curiosities quietly hum with subtle ingenuity. And we've floated even further into the small, whimsical experiments that reveal a man endlessly curious, endlessly meticulous, and quietly playful. Jefferson's inventions were rarely dramatic. They didn't make headlines, they didn't spark revolutions in industry, and they didn't win him accolades in the way that later inventors might have hoped for. But they show us something deeper, the mind of a man who was endlessly observant, endlessly experimental, and endlessly attentive to the small details of life. There is a certain calmness in that, a meditative rhythm, almost hypnotic, as we imagine him carefully adjusting a lever, observing the flow of water, or measuring the tilt of sunlight on a plant. Let's drift slowly over Monticello one last time. Picture the gentle hills, the rustling trees, the soft hum of hidden mechanisms in the house. A plant stand rotates ever so slightly in the breeze. A small water wheel ticks quietly in its basin. A drawer slides open, revealing a carefully organized stack of letters. Jefferson leans over a notebook, pencil in hand, calmly jotting observations about angles, airflow, or fruit ripeness. It's a serene world where invention and observation are not urgent, not spectacular, but endlessly absorbing. It's worth noting that Jefferson's curiosity was not limited to objects or mechanisms. He was fascinated by patterns of growth, of behavior, of nature itself. His experiments with plant hybridization, soil, irrigation, and animal habits revealed a subtle mind attuned to rhythms in life. He measured, observed, and adjusted. He tinkered, sometimes gently, sometimes obsessively, and he recorded everything meticulously, leaving a quiet trail of thought, reflection, and invention that survives in letters, sketches, and notebooks. In this calm, reflective world, Jefferson's inventions become almost meditative exercises. The mechanical chairs, rotating stands, hidden drawers, and small levers all share a rhythm: observation, adjustment, repetition. Nothing hurries him, nothing startles him. Everything is measured, deliberate, and slow. There is a strange comfort in that, a sense of order in the small details of life. It's the opposite of chaos. It's the opposite of noise. It's a world quietly designed, carefully observed, and patiently understood. Even Jefferson's whimsical inventions, the miniature bird-feeding mechanisms, the rotating plant stands, and the experimental lighting adjustments reveal the same gentle patterns. They weren't practical for anyone else. They weren't meant to impress. They existed for one reason: the quiet joy of observation and experimentation. There is a calm poetry in that, a slow rhythm to a life spent noticing, adjusting, and understanding the world in ever finer detail. And of course, Jefferson's inventions were often extensions of his philosophical outlook. He believed in reason, observation, and careful experimentation. He trusted in slow, deliberate processes rather than immediate spectacle. He found satisfaction not in dramatic results, but in subtle improvements, elegant designs, and a calm mastery over his environment. Every rotating desk, hidden drawer, hydraulic experiment, or musical adjustment was a small meditation on life itself. Imagine Jefferson late in life, sitting quietly in his study, the sun tilting low over Monticello. The shadows stretch across the floor. A gentle breeze turns a plant stand slightly. A water wheel ticks softly in its basin. A drawer slides open, revealing a carefully organized stack of letters. Jefferson leans over a notebook, pencil in hand, calmly jotting observations about angles, airflow, or fruit ripeness. It's a serene world where invention and observation are not urgent, not spectacular, but endlessly absorbing. In this sense, Jefferson's legacy as an inventor is deeply human. It is not about fame, not about recognition, and not about monumental change. It is about a calm engagement with the world, an endless curiosity, and the satisfaction of quiet discovery. It's a lesson in patience, attentiveness, and subtle joy. It reminds us that invention need not be loud or dramatic to be meaningful. Sometimes it is simply the careful observation of life and the gentle nudging of systems to function just a little better, just a little more gracefully. And as we let Monticello fade from view, we can picture Jefferson's many small experiments in miniature. The hidden compartments, the rotating stands, the mechanical chairs, the water systems, the fruit presses, and even the musical and lighting refinements. Each is a quiet testament to a mind endlessly curious, patiently engaged, and quietly playful. So, as we draw this long, gentle exploration to a close, let's imagine the slow rhythm of Jefferson's life once more. Picture him leaning over a notebook, pencil in hand, softly adjusting a lever, rotating a stand, or observing the tilt of a plant. Hear the faint hum of water, the soft creak of wood, the gentle tick of a clock. Notice the calm patience, the quiet curiosity, and the gentle satisfaction of a life spent endlessly observing, endlessly experimenting, and endlessly refining. And as we let ourselves drift alongside him, we can relax into the same rhythm. The world outside fades, the hum of Monticello softens, the gentle pulse of Jefferson's inventions, the tiny wheels, levers, drawers, and rotating stands becomes a lullaby of curiosity and calm. Slowly, softly, we let our minds mirror his, patient, methodical, and quietly fascinated by the small wonders of the world. Thomas Jefferson may be remembered for his public life, for his political ideas, and for his historical significance. But in this quiet, private space, he leaves a different kind of legacy, a world of subtle invention, gentle experimentation, and meditative curiosity. It's a world that invites us to slow down, to observe carefully, and to find quiet joy in the small mechanisms and details around us. So, as we drift away from Monticello, let the gentle image linger. Jefferson quietly adjusting, observing, and refining, a slow, patient mind navigating the world through subtle invention and careful attention. Nothing urgent, nothing spectacular. Only calm, deliberate, and infinitely curious. And with that, let us close this long, gentle exploration of Thomas Jefferson's hidden inventions, allowing the quiet rhythm of his world and our own imagination to guide us gently into rest, reflection, and the slow, meditative pulse of a mind attuned to the small wonders of life. Sleep now with the soft rotation of gears, the gentle tilt of plant stands, the quiet hum of flowing water, and the calm, deliberate curiosity of Thomas Jefferson's endlessly inventive mind guiding you into calm, gentle slumber.